All right, the time is now 1 p.m. Welcome everybody to our midday conversation. Today we are talking with John Stevens, known as JAS Photo. He is a pro at storytelling visually. He's worked with us in the past, many classes, education. He also worked with us with our pop-up salon last year, helping us to capture those moments. And I'm really excited to have him on here. He's also served as an advisor for our association as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to JAS Photo.
All right, thanks, Elaine. Hello, everybody out there in cyberspace. My name is John Stevens. As Elaine said, I am so happy to be here with you all and to talk about story today. It's not something that I normally talk about because I'm a photographer, but I think it'll be a wonderful experience for you all to share in this presentation webinar today. So we're going to just go on and kick it off. Obviously, with our first slide, we are talking about stories. What's your story? And it was important for me to ask the question more so than to say, hey, this is what a story is, because you are the ones who define the stories that matter the most to you. And that also means that they matter the most to your audience. So in this brief hour that we have, we'll go through some things that talk about storytelling. We'll talk about how imagery in reference to that storytelling can be very powerful and how you can use that to your advantage. And we'll go from there. So as we go into our first slide, we'll go into an overview. This workshop is basically designed to help you find your visual voice. A lot of times when you think about storytelling, you think about someone telling you a story. There's a story being conveyed in every image that you put out, whether it's social media, whether it's in print, whether it's a magazine, whether it's photographs on the walls. There's a lot of ways you can tell a story. And today we're gonna kind of stay in target with the visual version of those stories. So we want to find a way to effectively communicate, connect, and capture your target audience through storytelling. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's such a big statement for me because a lot of times we start telling stories and we don't even know that we're telling those certain stories. We're putting images out and we're saying things and we're not really aware of what they're doing, whether they're engaging our customers or audience or whether they're not engaging them at all. We kind of just share things. We share a lot of things in our society and with technology these days. And all of it is telling stories. So we want to be more intentional about what stories we're putting out there visually. Images, just in reference to photography and photos, because this can actually span to graphics and illustrations and documentation too. But images and media are playing a much bigger role in marketing products and services than ever before. The trend is bringing higher online traffic and revenue, small and big businesses alike. The National Retail Federation reports that, and this was something that was taken, I actually did this maybe 2 years ago, so I can imagine that it's a little bit higher, but it was 67% of consumers say that the quality of the product or service image is very important in purchasing that product or service. And that's just a slice of how much media can have an influence on your audience, whether they're purchasing a service from you or whether they're coming to you because you're a content creator and they're looking for you to have fresh new content on a weekly, monthly basis to learn something new. And that requires a certain level of demand, but also a place where you have to engage with your clients or audience in a way that's a give and take of sorts. 5 ways that will pretty much be rounded out through this presentation to tell a great story, starting with reflection. It's not necessarily, I know a lot of times we want to jump into what we need to do visually. I need a headshot. I need a picture of my work. I need to shoot my space. I need to shoot this promo. But a lot of times we forget to reflect back on ourselves. Number one, reflect on how much of yourself you see in your story. You should be able to look at what stories you're telling, what things you're putting out there visually, and you should be able to see a part of yourself, a part of your opinions, a part of your belief, a part of what you think and the way you think, even in the sense of maybe even your favorite color. A lot of times we tailor things strictly for the audience, and we lose ourselves, and we look back at these stories and they don't look like us, and then we wonder why they don't engage in a way that gets the audience to either buy a product, buy a service, or to come in a door for a brick and mortar, or engage with us online in a healthy conversation. The next one is structure. Structure your story in a way you won't blend in or be forgotten by your audience. A lot of times we like to follow what the person who's got all the likes or all the followers is doing, and that's not always the best thing, because if somebody's done it before, it's going to be harder for you to stand out. And that story visually is even harder, because you're going to have something that's going to grab the attention of the person, that's even greater than the people that they're following. So you want to kind of have your own space, carving out your own space through structure. Communicate in an authentic way that makes it easy for your audience to relate to your visual voice, and that's important. A lot of times we think we can't share some of the, I'm not going to say bad stuff, but maybe some of the challenges. That's being you. That's you being authentic. A lot of times we skew our stories in a way where we only show the perfect things. We only show the things that we think people need to see. We don't show the journey to get to that place that was success, or to get to that place of that goal that you were really fighting for. There's a huge opportunity in communicating authentically to be able to motivate and inspire others to do the same. Think of how many inspirational stories that have motivated you up to this point, to continue doing whatever your goal is, whatever your vision is, for your business or for your life. Next, create a culture within your story that your audience wants to be a part of. Normally I'd say create is just being unique, but these days we need to take it a step further and think of telling stories that pull people into a culture, not just to a moment, because we want to continue that conversation with our audience, and that's required to do so. We need to create a culture, a place where they feel comfortable, and it feels like a space that they want to come back to. And most content creators do a pretty good job at getting folks to come back and saying what the next thing is, or what their opinion is about something that has just happened. And then lastly, share your story in safe spaces that will allow you to develop content that can be expanded with new ideas. Safe spaces are just simply your friends, your mentors, your colleagues, your partners. A lot of times we think share is just mainly with the public, but we need to be able to create spaces where we can have conversations when we're not all the way together yet. This is a great opportunity to have a webinar where you can actually have a conversation, ask a question about a story, or how you can visually tell a story without having to worry about, oh, I've messed up, now they won't come into my space, or they won't come engage me in the way that I want. I don't want to seem like I don't have my stuff together. This is the place that you need to create that space where you don't have to worry about if your stuff is together. You just need to be able to throw out ideas and develop them. So in expanding on those 5 principles, those things that are really important for great storytelling, I just want to dive a little bit deeper into each one of those. Going to our first one that we talked about, the reflection. I have a Instagram campaign that I started 2 years ago, and it was all about saying hello. I would implore you to say hello to yourself. Not necessarily saying that you got to go look in a mirror and say, how am I going to, be better today? Although there's nothing wrong with that. But I want you to be able to say hello to yourself in a way that you can feel confident about the story or the visuals that you're putting out in this storytelling, and be proud of it, and not necessarily be afraid that it's going to be taken the wrong way. It's more about what you like. Most of our visual narratives start prematurely, and we don't have the slightest clue as to what they're communicating or if they're even connecting with our intended audience. We need to find more time to find out who we are first, and then we can better connect with our audience. I'm just saying, if you're going to introduce somebody, you kind of want to know who they are before you introduce them to your best friend or to your family member or whoever you feel has value within your life. And I want you to think of that same way for your audience. Again, every story has a beginning, middle, and an end. And I'm saying that because I don't want you to start in the middle, and I don't want you to start at the end. But that's where most stories start, when you don't have any idea of who you are. That's where the starting point is. You are the beginning. You looking back at yourself, saying your likes, your dislikes, your opinions, your beliefs, all the things that kind of fit into who you are. That's what makes the difference. And that's where your story begins. And then your audience may come in the middle, and then you carry them through the end, and then you continue on through expanding your story from there. Some of the tips that I would give in reference to how to help you do that, find a story you connect with the most. We are the best consumers. We're the best consumer report out, because we consume data, we consume content, we consume visuals, medias, and stories every day. Just think about what you like. Just think about what things jump out at you, over the course of the day. A lot of times we're not really paying attention to those things, but I would ask that you, from this point, start trying to take an idea of saying, hey, let me pay attention. I'll give you a perfect example. Was on the plane earlier today, and I saw a Coca-Cola commercial, and I was like, yeah, I knew they put names on the bottle, but this is different, because now the names have like lifestyle things going on with them. Like, Beth likes to be on a roller coaster ride with her date, Johnny, and they both are drinking Coca-Cola. There's something there that jumped out at me, because it's different. It's different to pull your audience into your story. Also, think about how you want your audience to respond when you're ready. And I put an emphasis on when you're ready, because that's where the safe spaces come from. To be able to try things out. An industry or craft that they do that in is, you think of comedians. Lots of comedians who are very famous have bombed a lot, and you may never have seen it. Maybe it's one tape out there that's shown them bomb, but typically they've had a space to be able to go try out their jokes, say them, see who laughs at what, and then if they don't get many laughs, they change it, they switch it up, and they tweak it for the next audience, and they continue to do that over and over again. And that's the way I want you to think of your visual story, the imagery that you put out, that there's a way to tweak it, show it to others in that safe space, get some feedback, and keep it moving. Include yourself in a way that does not separate you from your story. And that's what I was talking about earlier, in the sense of just solely focusing on your audience so much that you don't even see yourself in your stories anymore. You need to be in your story. It's important that you're in your stories. Those are the things that your audience gravitate to. People are attracted to things that are authentic. I was looking at BET Awards was on last night, and Tiffany Haddish was one of the recipients. I just love Tiffany Haddish because she seems to be so very authentic in the way that she responds to whether she's receiving an award or whether she's seeing a celebrity. Even though we look at her as a celebrity now, she still has that relatable reaction, that relatable response that makes me connect with her. So that's the thing that you want to keep. You want to stay in a place where once you find out who you are, weave that through all of your imagery and your stories. That goes into also the structure, and then I've touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to highlight an example of structure and how having structure within the way that you put out your media or your imagery through visual stories can make a difference. I have a dream. Martin Luther King, everybody knows, and if you haven't known, please go Google it. I Have a Dream, listen to it. But one thing that I picked out of his speech was the way you communicate is something that comes to you naturally. The way that you tell stories is something different. and I meant to put all together. Everybody that can talk doesn't mean that they can tell a great story. And I think you've run into a couple people that have, say, hey, I got a story for you. And then it goes on, and you're like, oh, I wish it would end. You don't want that to happen to you. So you want to think about how you're going to structure your stories to gain the most engagement from your audience. It is when you apply structure that people begin listening to you and recognizing your voice. Not someone else's, but your voice. Martin Luther King did this very well in his speech, I Have a Dream. It was structured in a way that throughout the speech, you consistently heard, I have a dream, over and over again. The structure allowed his audience to walk away with the cadence, along with an emotional connection that left an opening for those words, making sure it was a speech that you would never forget. And that was one of those things where you say, if you don't remember anything else, you're going to remember I Have a Dream. And that's what you want to do for yourself in the way that you create your visual narrative, your story. Tips on that: find a common thread in your story and be consistent in weaving that into your media. So if it is a color, it could be simple. You always have some form of color that's in all of your imagery, no matter what it is, but you find a way to weave that in. Or if it's you providing a video at the end of showing your work that gives your opinion on how it worked out. Did you have any, snafus when you were trying to create a style, or did you run into any obstacles? And give a little tidbit of how you worked it out. Those are things that people want to see that allow consistency, because once you find that place that you like to see, and I'm sure all of you have a certain media source that you look at, you keep going back. And eventually you're going to engage with these people in a way where, yeah, you were looking at them, but then now such and such is now selling something, or maybe they're inviting you to join them face to face. These are things that are now interesting to you because you've connected with that cadence. The same cadence that goes along with the Martin Luther King speeches has now connected with you. And I want you to have that same cadence with your stories. Think of creative ways to incorporate your story in passive and aggressive ways. So is storytelling enough? Yeah, if you just want to be a storyteller. But if you're in business, or if you're a personality, or you want to grow in your craft, you're going to want to eventually elevate that to a place where you're now asking your audience to do something. It could be very small. It could be, tell me how you feel today. This is the way I feel. Do you feel this way too? Anybody out there feel the same way I feel? Or it could be, hey, drop a like on my such and such. Subscribe to my channel. Leave your email for my email list. I want to connect with you more. Lots of ways that you can engage, but eventually you want to be able to ramp that up. You don't want to just always be passive, and you also don't want to always be aggressive. You want to keep a balance there. Encourage your audience to share their stories that connect with those same themes found in your story. So that's why it's important to do a common thread. It's important to have that one thread that you can weave throughout all of your visual media, because then you can ask your audience to expand on that. They can bring stories far beyond your imagination that you didn't even think could be brought out, and they can also bring in others with them. But don't be afraid to engage them. Don't be afraid to ask them to share their stories as well, once you get your story in the place where you're rolling with it. Communicate. So with communicate, I put how do I look, because it's a visual voice. It's not just your audio voice, although you can add audio at any time, like we're doing today. You want to be able to get an idea of what that feedback, and this merely touches on the thing that I was talking about earlier, to find a safe space to show and tell your story to those who will offer constructive feedback to you that will help you develop your delivery in a way your audience will be able to appreciate and relate to. There's nothing wrong with asking a friend or mentor, does my story make sense? And that's what you need. You need somebody who's going to give you feedback. You need a space, whether it's ANAC Pro, to be able to go into the forum and say, hey, if we create a forum page that's just simply on ads, marketing ads, not necessarily the ideas, but maybe the delivery, let's talk about it. Let's share. What do you do as your best practices to help you get more responses from your customers or your audience? And I guarantee you're going to get somebody to reply. Somebody's found out that formula or cracked the code in some kind of way, form, or fashion, and they're just not sharing it, or maybe they just hadn't been asked, so they don't think about it. We walk around with a wealth of knowledge, and we just don't share it because nobody's asked us. Well, maybe we should offer that. Tips for this in reference to communicate, I think of it as like beta testing. Beta test your story with friends. Test it out in a place where it's not open to the public yet, but you're just trying it out. Like I was saying earlier with the comedians, try out those tricks, try out those things, and just see how it works, and then change it out. Change it out for what you feel is best fitted for it. Document your journey and allow your audience to see how you got to the place of confidence in your story. This is so important. I'm not saying it has to be real time, but it is an amazing, powerful thing to be able to show someone, hey, you like what I'm doing? Let me show you where I came from, because you could do the same thing. You can empower people who are listening to your story, who are seeing your story, and find a way to engage them even further by showing them that they can do it too. The engagement is great on all levels. If people are talking to you and they're sharing with you, that means that they respect you and they know that there's something of quality that you're offering to them, and that's an opportunity for you to grow a relationship with your audience through these visual stories. Find a way to get your audience to think of themselves in your story. I brought it up earlier about Coca-Cola. Reason why I like that commercial wasn't necessarily because I was thinking I was, possibly someone who would be on a roller coaster with Betty, but I saw them as, look, there's someone out there that can relate to Betty and Johnny, and they're doing it right now. Matter of fact, if they see this commercial, they're probably going to run out and get a Coke. And they did that for like maybe 3 or 4 different couples or different archetypes of people or categories of people. And that's something that you can do too. When you start opening your story up, you got it defined, the structure is there, you've got the kinks worked out through development, and then you open it up and say, hey, you can put yourself in the shoes of my story. You can see yourself in my stories. You can see yourself in my visuals. They're not so high end where I can't relate to them. I had that issue earlier on as a photographer. People would come to my site and like, oh, I just didn't call you because I thought you were too expensive. Or I thought you were too far out there with your concepts. I didn't think that you did regular stuff. I'm like, yes, I do regular stuff. I shoot pictures. Like, it could be anything, but you want to be able to have it to a point where it's easy for people to access you, your messaging, and that's through your story. Don't make it so high level to the point where people have to go Google half the stuff you're saying or half the stuff you're showing them because they don't understand it. It needs to be explained. You need to lay it out plainly and then elevate them from there. Grow your audience with you to a point where you're allowing them to join in with you on that storytelling. Create. I didn't want to be too specific in create. I wanted to really just show you some examples. Even though I'm a photographer and I had to kind of hold myself back from just making this a totally photography-laden presentation, I felt like this was the best project that I could show you of this storytelling put to use. So in Create, be yourself. Check out, these are some of my examples from a client that I worked with some years back. We did literally a huge campaign for McDonald's. And the way that they told the story for the Black 365 month during this project was they wanted to highlight owners of a lot of the McDonald's in the southern region that a lot of people didn't know that Black folks owned. But not only did they want to show them as owners, which is just like a suit or in a uniform or having them in, the typical shot would have been this Van Jake standing in front of his McDonald's with his arms folded. That would have been the typical shot. But they did it differently. They chose to go to each owner and to make them relatable in a way that the kids could see them as an example of, hey, I can possibly do this too. They took things that they liked. Van Jakes was a football player, and basically this was his passion outside of having and or owning a McDonald's. And then outside of that, they didn't talk about the football, they just put it there. So this is them telling a story about Van Jake, and then the information that they put outside of that is to say, hey, he looks like a regular guy, but guess what? He owns 5 restaurants. He's got 215 employees. He's been in the business for 20 years. There's loads of underestimation and you know, where you wouldn't have known that had it not been listed this way, but you know he likes football. He was talking football the whole time we did this shoot. And in conveying that message, it wasn't enough for him to hold the football. We had to get a pose from him because he wanted to show the Heisman pose. And that told a little bit more of the story. And as I give you a couple more of examples of this, I did quite a few of these for this booklet. But this is a great example of how visually it's not about how complex or how crazy the photo could look or how how you can look like a celebrity. It's really about what you're saying. What is the photo saying? And that's what I've been meaning by visual storytelling. Well, it's obvious that Muriel likes to ski. She's got skis, but this is her corporate outfit. But she brought in the thing that she liked to do most. She brought in the prop of skis. We see that Mark likes music, and he was dancing through the whole shoot. And Linda is into decor. And you know what? Actually, let me tell you about Linda. Linda's even more unique. Not only is Linda into decor, but that was representative of her family tree. She was the one who, in her family, that did all the historical documentation to trace her roots back to her grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother. She was always that person. So she brought this as a symbol of her connection with her family. And now all these images have this basic information, but then there was a bio or a blip about what I'm telling you in the book as well. So here it is. You're getting to know these people outside of just being owners and outside of just being a person who has employees or has been with McDonald's for years. You now actually can relate to them because you may be that person that has done that for your family. You may be that person like Muriel who likes to ski. You definitely may be that person like Mark who loves music. And for our gentleman down at the end, Hayes, he's a Navy guy. Didn't have to say much. He brought the hat, had the name on it. And he also put, I don't know if you all noticed, they put their McDonald's favorites, the things that they like to eat. I think it means a lot for someone who owns a McDonald's for them to put a favorite item on the menu and still like it. So you've got some of them that still like their Coca-Colas, they like their hamburgers, they like their fries, and they say world famous fries. These are all the liberties that you have to tell your own story in a different way. It's not just you putting a picture of yourself. It could be, you could do anything. You could put pictures of someone else. You could put pictures of items. There's lots of ways for you to tell stories visually, but you want to do it in a way where you have structure, that you've thought it out. Lastly, share. Share, 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 share. Share your story and share it often. Whether it's in a safe space, whether it's in a public space, whether it's in your head space, share it. The way you share what you love is up to you. The key is to be consistent with your content and quality. It's less about you and more about making real connections with your clients, aka your audience. And I just put a couple of different platforms that you could share, but that's just electronically. You could actually share at a coffee shop having a conversation. You could share in a church outing. You could share on vacation. You could share in a lot of different ways, but just share. It's a great way to engage your audience. It's a great way to get your story out there, because just holding your story in and having that great information and holding it hostage, that's not cool. People want to hear. what's going on with you. People want to see what you have in mind. They want to understand your vision just as much as you want them to understand it. But if you never share it, nobody will ever know. So quickly, in these last 51 seconds, tips: set up a social media profile that communicates all things related to your story. Create a voice for your story that attracts the audience that you love. Don't be afraid to get feedback from your audience as to things that they would like to see you share. Caveat to that: when people comment on your pages and they put stuff on your pictures, talk back to them. They want to talk to you. Have a conversation. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for engagement. And lastly, create a daily, weekly, or monthly share schedule so you don't get overwhelmed. Put something out to the point where you at least know that this can be done and you can continue what you started, because people will now be looking for that more and more that you put things out. It's been great to share with you all today. Hopefully you learned something, or I was able to share something that helped you. That's my timer. And I'll leave you here on my resource sheet that has all my information. Elaine will be posting a link a little bit later with the access so you can download this presentation, look back at it, also have the notes for the links. And I'm just happy to have been able to share with you all today. So if you have any questions, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm going to unmute everyone so they can ask their questions live. But I did want to say something. You mentioned showing your journey, and I thought that was really important, because not only does it, tell people, like you said, it can inspire them to know that they can do what you did, but also, especially with hair care professionals, those people who put in lots of years of work, lots of training, it also helps establish you as an expert.
Yeah.
Not only can it show people that they can do what you do, but it can also show people that they can't do what you can do as well when you share your journey. So I just wanted to tag on to that as far as the importance of sharing your journey. Everybody is unmuted, or they're able to talk. You'd have to unmute yourself on your line, or if you don't want to speak, you can also put your questions in chat. I highly encourage you all to ask John about any kind of questions you have that have to do with photography, marketing, telling your story visually. It's rare that we're able to get them on the line, so I want to make sure you guys take full advantage of this. Does anybody have any questions? Wow.
Don't be shy. This is our beta. This is a safe space. So while y'all are thinking about it, what I'll add to what Elaine said, if you were experienced and you've had lots of great experiences as a hairstylist or in the profession, you probably got a lot of archive photos, some photos that aren't even digital. That's a treasure trove of stories that you can tell that have already passed, that no one else can really replicate, to show your personal experiences with, whether it was a unique situation in the past, or whether it was your first shop, or whether it was the first time you met someone who you've always wanted to meet, and sharing that. They have the thing that they do, the throwback Tuesdays and things of that nature. These are all things that are literally framed for you to share things, but you don't have to wait to that moment or that day to share. You can share in your own way. You can say, hey, we're going to go flashback. We're going to flash back to my archives, or show documentation of all the stuff that you've done in the past. And you don't have to do it all at once. It might just be a little bit every week. You just share a little piece of your story as you're getting the new story, or the story going forward together.
How many people online have a question about developing your story, or not even sure what's meant by your story when we talk about your story? Does anybody have any questions on that?
No.
Okay.
Well, with your stories, however you tell them, visuals are king right now. If you go to any website, you're going to see more than 80 to 90% of the websites are now either photos or either videos. And there's very specific ways that these photos or videos are being shared. YouTube can do the same. It doesn't have to be some $1 million production. Matter of fact, the productions that are done more amateur are what the companies are trying to replicate now, because you've got YouTubers, you've got folks who are creating content in their living room and in their workspaces, and still being able to garner the attention that they are looking for. And some things money can't buy, and that's where story comes in, and being able to structure your visual narrative in a way that you're able to stay consistent and just get people coming back for more.
I guess for me, this is Margaret.
Okay. Hey, Margaret.
Hey, how you doing? I guess for me, it's like what part of the story, like you said, that you want to release, and to make it as plain as possible, because to you it's plain as, what, mud.
Sometimes.
You're like, what? So I guess that's just my challenge, and that's a lot what you threw on us. Well, for me, it's like I'm going through my brain and say, okay, what part of this you want the people to gravitate towards, or some of it may be too much at the moment because they're getting to know you.
Right.
So that's, I said no, but yes, you're constantly thinking. You're giving us a lot to think about.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The challenge that you're talking about is the same challenge that I had to work through. And that's what I meant by I put a lot of work out there, and it was hard for me to figure out how to engage my folks. I was telling too much story in some cases, and I had to really whittle it down to its simplest form. So if you go to my Instagram, or I'll just give you like a highlight of it. It's just me saying hello. I'm doing a whole bunch of hellos. So I'll do like hello beauty, or hello inspiration, hello creativity. I took it down to its most simplest form, because I was like, I need to do something that everybody or anybody can relate to, and I don't alienate people because you're in a certain group or a certain industry. Anybody can walk up and say, okay, everybody know what happiness is. So if I just say hello happiness, and what I did, Margaret, was I just found an image that spoke happiness to me, and I just put it together with it. So I put out this stuff. It wasn't about me just saying my name or saying I was a photographer. I really just wanted it to be something that people would look at, and then maybe even share in a way that my work could actually move about without it necessarily being attached to my face, or attached in a way where I have to have my logo on everything. But it was just a simple form of, hey, every time I meet somebody, I've got to say hello. That's the only way you're going to start a conversation. You have to say hello, or either somebody's going to think you're weird or kooky. So, it worked. People started sharing the thing. It took me a year before folks caught on to what I was trying to do. But I stuck in there, and I just kept doing these hellos. And in some cases I was running out of hellos. I was looking in the dictionary, looking for descriptive words. What kind of hello can I do? And then on top of that, I had to find it's a challenge to also find a photo, because I did have a lot of content, and that makes it more difficult. Because you got a lot of stuff. It's not like you can't tell a story. It's what story you want to start with.
Yeah.
But I'll implore you, if you just look at things in the most simplistic way, if it's just a memory, if you take it as a memory here, a memory there, and start there, then when they get on board, once you get it going, they're going to be telling you what you're doing. They're going to be, chiming back to you and saying, oh, Margaret, I love how you go down memory lane. Because the stylists these days don't even talk about that stuff anymore. Or being able to relate in a way of maybe tools that don't get used anymore. That you may have had access to. I know Steve Harvey does it where he has the kids, he gives them these the devices or things from the past that they would know nothing about, and he asks them, "Hey, tell me what this is." And then they have a good laugh about what it is. But then he's also bringing up the past, this nostalgia. He's bringing up the nostalgia of the past and how things are so different now. But there's a lot of different ways. But I would say don't overthink it. I had a person tell me a long time ago, the KISS theory, keep it simple, silly. Sometimes they use the other word. Sweetie. Oh, sweetie. There. I wish they would have said sweetie. But that's also the reason why I knew it was a lot. It's very high level, but that's also why I wanted Elaine to have the document so you can go back and look at it. It was more so to get you to think. So it really to get you to think about who you are, and that's not always easy. Oh, I got to look at myself. I got to look in the mirror, that imaginary mirror, and say, who am I as a business owner, or who am I as a stylist, who am I as a professional? And that's different. It was hard for me when I had to look at myself. I didn't see myself in my work for a long time, and I had to start fresh to try and make sure that I was in the work that I was putting out. Thank you for your feedback.
Also, Margaret. Also, in addition to that, as a business, when you're looking at your story. In fact, I just had a conversation about that earlier today. Look at what it is that you're trying to look at what it is that makes you valuable. I'll use John's hello for example. He said earlier that sometimes his work made him almost unapproachable because people thought he was so high level. And he had campaigns, and he had things for people who just want a photograph or a photo session may have felt that he wasn't approachable. But with a campaign like his Hello campaign, not only does it, simply just by using the term and the feeling hello makes him approachable, but also it's quality photos that tell a story. And that's what JAS Photo is, quality photos that tell a story. So look at what it is your business is and what makes your business valuable. I know about your business. So, you do a lot with product development and product services, from education to manufacturing, consulting. You do those things, but everybody who's coming to you currently is coming to you for about products, making and understanding products. So that if you kind of, like you said, you keep it simple, if you build your content around the base, what that base is of your company, then that becomes very helpful. I know we have Desiree on the line, and she's accounting. She does so much with accounting. But here lately, there's been a strong focus with all of her content towards accounting for stylists. Right. So that tells that story that she's the accountant for stylists. I don't know everybody else is still online, but really look at your business and then try to get to the core of what it is that you give the core of who your audience is and how you're valuable to your audience. Because sometimes, and I think John touched on this a little, sometimes after we reflect, we get too much into our reflections of what we think about ourselves and who we are. In fact, I wrote down when he was talking about reflection, about how people sometimes want to tell so much, but then follow it right back up with structure, which is huge. Right, exactly. So I didn't have to throw that question out there because it builds on. So understanding who you are, and then understanding what it is that what your value is to your customer, and then you can be authentic to that. But that helps you simplify it. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah, because generally when like I said, I'm a producer, a manufacturer, and you're so happy that somebody want to know about this stuff too. You when you give it to them, like they're like, "What's she talking about?" Or did I ask her what's a good she make that?
And you know what, Margaret, you may even want to look into what attracts the folks that feed into that market, into your market too. You know, because I'm already sure that there's some. I've had folks who've done product shoots and don't have a clue as to how to get involved with development side, and that's something that they're very interested in. But there are also folks that don't always seem to have enough time to sit still long enough to be able to listen to what they need to hear. So a lot of times in that chaos that they've created for themselves, you may find a diamond in those environments, because these are places where, you know, for development, this is over time. That is that structure that they need. But a lot of times you can be distracted because everybody's, well, I got this client coming in and I can't think about that. I have no idea how to get to the top of the mountain where Margaret is, because I'm right here just trying to get these heads in the door. You know, putting yourself in a place where you can say, hey, these are spaces where people typically are distracted. Let me find a way to create the calm. Let me show the peace about this thing that I do, and how it can be consistent, and how it can be more accessible to that entry level person, so that they can get excited, because they're excited about it. They just don't know. They're just not standing still long enough to be able to get to you.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
Anybody else got anything they want to throw out there in the safe space?
Yes. How do you find the core of what to determine of what to put out there? Like, I focus on natural hair. My name is Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
I focus on natural hair and protected styles, and I'm trying to figure out how to get my audience or clientele build up, and how to also market myself. And I'm trying to, so I don't know if I'm making any sense right now.
No, you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you been putting things out already?
Yes, I have. I have been putting things
Stories
out.
already began. Yeah.
Um,
What do you find yourself putting out most? Like, if you look back at all the stuff that you do, and this is good for everybody, if you look back at what you normally put out, look at it before you start looking at engagement. Look at what you put out more. So is it more styles? Is it more information?
I would say more style, more fashion, fashion runway hairstyles.
Okay.
More. I like to be doing models hair. I like the fast pace, creativity. Also, I do also like to educate people on how to protect their natural hair. So I like both. I like the fashion life of it, and I also like the natural and being natural and knowing how to work with what you have and how to protect it, how to take care for it, and knowing what to eat, vitamin wise, if you're on anything, and what. So I also want to get into educating people about their hair. And
so you ready? You ready?
yeah.
All right, I got it for you, because I've had some experience with the fashion stylists. I've had some experience with those who do protective styles. I know a little bit about natural hair, a little bit. You're speaking of a niche. A niche to say that you can do fashion. So you can go into a fashion space where normally it's very fast paced. 9 out of 10 is very quick. You don't really have a lot of time with the models or the clients that you have coming through. But then to be able to throw in a snippet of, hey, you know, if you did just such and such, you'd have better such and such. So next time you come, you'll get done quicker, or maybe your hair will be healthier, or it can hold on to whatever is being done to it. Because it is a lot of stress that goes on to these models' hair when they go into these situations, because they're doing a lot. But if you can find a way to say, hey, I'm the balance. I can do both. I can straddle on both sides of the fence. I can be that person that can do your hair, and we can have you out cutting edge, red carpet, the whole 9 yards. But I also can be that person you can circle back to, and we can figure out how you can still maintain that lifestyle, still maintain the way that you move in reference to the fashion side, but not lose your hair in the process.
Got it.
Because when you do things like that, because nobody's talking about health, they're just talking about what they want to see. And the problem, one of the problems in that industry is that there's not a lot of care that goes toward the models. It's just what you want to look like. So if you can be that maybe that happy medium of saying, hey, I actually care. I'm not doing this just because I just want to. Yes, I want to get a great look. I want us both to have a great images and to have a great, experience for what is being displayed. But I also want to make sure that you're protected in the process.
I agree.
Now, if you keep me going, I might just throw out something. I ain't never heard of no natural hair protection agency, but
I know,
it'd be kind of nice. It'd be kind of nice. You know what I'm saying? Kind of nice. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of ways you can tell that story visually. You take the whole security template, way people look at security, and just flip your hair. Just hair. Everything hair. We protect your hair. We got a security guard in front of your head. Nope, you're not gonna mess with her hair. We're protecting it.
Okay. And so then I'm currently in school for barbering. So I find myself creating all these different Instagram pages for different audience, then how to merge them into, one like.
So at the root of it, what's the common denominator?
Hair.
Hair.
Yes.
Hair. Now, the other thing that's so wide open is nobody really talks about dudes protecting their hair.
No.
Nobody. Now, there's a lot of grooming things that are coming up. I'm starting to see a lot more people doing this grooming thing.
Yes.
Whether they're coming out with the razors or they're coming out with the creams. But nobody's really talking about protection for hair. And in most cases, us dudes are kind of ignorant to any type of protection. We're putting whatever's on the counter on our head.
That's true.
And if it's nothing going wrong with it, we keep doing it for the rest of our life. I know my dad put Vaseline on his head for I don't know how many years. That's just I did it for a long time too. Before I was like, that's why I'm always hot. So it's an opportunity for you to blink that. I would say introduce yourself first before you jump into those markets of saying it's going to be this way or that way. Let that grow into those safe spaces. I think the best marketing that you can do is the one that's organic, meaning, oh, wow, yeah, of course she's talking about protective styles because she's shown us, where she was making comments on some of the protective styles that she would like to, dive into, or maybe the education that you want to put out there, offering some tips. Or of course she's working with dudes because I've seen her, working in the barbershop, and she's, introducing yourself, saying hello first, giving people an idea of who you are, and then you just sprinkle the protective style, you sprinkle the runways and stuff, you sprinkle the barbershop stuff, and then as you see further engagement, you just beef it up as your audience grows. It doesn't mean that it's not going to continue, but once your audience gets there, right now, usually when you start, you think nobody's listening, but they are, but they may not be engaging with you the way that you like to. Meaning, hey, how can I get you to get, how can I use you for my next runway show? Or how can I come do a consultation with you for my next protective style that I want? Or how can I be a dude and actually start thinking about what I'm putting on my head?
Okay.
So
do you think it's a good thing to have more than one Instagram page as far as when you're running your business, or do you think that you
not in the beginning because you're splitting your audience?
Oh, yes. All right.
Because you're still developing your story. You're still developing what narrative you're going to end up telling. And here's what I don't want you to experience. I've experienced it. You get them all in one place, and then you change your mind. You see the error of your ways, and then you try. It's nothing more painful than trying to migrate people over to a new space. A lot of times we want to kind of be like, well, everybody on here likes my barbering stuff, so I don't have to worry about it. So I can just put 1,000 things about barbering. But you're fragmenting your audience in a way where you got to think about balance. It's a little bit more challenging. You want to balance the content with you know, a little bit of you, a little bit of protective stuff, a little bit of barber stuff, a little bit of fashion stuff, and use it to your advantage. I mean, you've got things, you got a nice mix in the sense of things that are attractive that people want to see. The pretty pictures, they can go to the fashion stuff. You know, if they want the knowledge, you give them the education for the protective stuff. And then with the barber, you can kind of go both ways with that, because I mean, men are on the red carpet too.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you for your feedback and your question. Anyone else? Do we have another in our 5-minute countdown? Because I know Elaine's looking like she's about to say it.
I'm not saying, I'm just making sure everybody has a chance to get their questions in.
Yeah, I'm here.
I kind of wanted to piggyback off of what the lady was saying, as far as like if you're trying to build clientele, like me myself, I've been for about 3 years now, and of course right now I'm just doing hair, so I'm doing it from my home.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of trying to find out what direction I should go as far as like my social media and things of that sort, and if there are any like apps, like if I'm posting pictures, are there any type of apps that I can use to kind of bring the pictures together to kind of do what you're saying, like tell the story, or you know, kind of what direction. I'm trying to get some feedback or advice on what direction I should go, being that I'm not actually in a shop, which I could go be in a shop, or should I do that, or should I not, being that I've already I'm already putting myself out there as my own individual business.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. I had the hairstylist. One of the hairstylists has worked with me for years. She wasn't even a hairstylist when she first started working with me. She wasn't even doing anything in regards to natural hair. Now she's a natural hairstylist, and it's hard for me to get appointments with her now, put it like this. She started in her home, and a lot of the stuff that she did was with me doing these. We all did these photo shoots, and we would continue to create new content. And what we figured out was every time we created new content, we got new clients every time. But we had to do it on our own. We couldn't wait on the client to call us. We had to do it on our own. And not only was she shining, the whole team was shining. So we had a makeup artist, hairstylist, wardrobe stylist, myself, art director. Whole team had different parts of this of the fruit from these projects. But what I found was every shoot, she always found a way to where the client would end up like, or whoever we were working with would be like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And I was like, you just hit the room, and they just cling on to you. And what I figured out was she had a way of making people feel like they couldn't do without her. And because it was a special situation where normally you would find her in her home, most of her appointments that she would have in her home originated on photo shoots. Because if it wasn't the model, I couldn't get work off the model. I was just trying to get portfolio work for these companies. But she could get work off the model because she did her hair. And through doing her hair, she got the images. And then next thing you know, I'm seeing the model. Well, they're seeing her more than they're seeing me anymore, because they're booking her to actually do their hair. And that's one part of it, in reference to how you can use that platform of you being in your home right now, and until she still works out of her home too. She's done it for now about 12 years. But it can work. The other part is when you talk about your social media and you're thinking about apps, what I would implore for everybody to do is don't think that no filter is going to help you get that quality image. No filter, no collage. And I will ask that you think about collages very closely, because what happens is you put so many images up and people see them. So like, normally when I did this presentation before, it was about a different thing. It was about social media, period. And what I would tell them was like, you go to a stylist page and you see 1,000 styles. It's like the style book that used to be in the salons.
Right.
Well, unless I'm looking for a style, I am alienated. I don't really have any way in to see who you are. And I used to tell them, I was like, if you take a picture with your client, if you take a picture of your client, here's some things you can do to make it more relatable. Put the client who you just took a picture of, tag them, because you don't see a lot of people getting tagged. That's one. Take a picture with them. Get in front of the camera and take a picture with them, because you very few, you can scroll through a stylist page and you may not ever find out who the stylist is, because it's just all styles. So you want to balance your content in a way where you give them a little bit of yourself. I'm not saying you got to give them your business, and I'm not saying give them your personal business, but you can give them a little bit of your likes, your dislikes, your opinions. Give them an idea of who they're gonna meet when they sit in your chair, regardless if you're at home or you're in a salon. Doesn't matter. They're gonna hire you for you, because at the end of the day, I don't see myself as the best photographer in the world. There are a million photographers in this city who can be better than me, but people come to me because of who I am, not because of what photos I can take. I'm more than capable of taking the photos that they need, but will I always say that I'm the best? No, but they like the experience. I would always say for stylists to lean more on the experience. I'm not saying you got to give them Moet or champagne when they sit in your chair, because some people do that, but then because you run out. But I'm saying in the sense of just sharing in that experience and making your clients more than just a head or more than just a style. Incorporating them in a way where you're able to highlight them to the point where people start coming to you because they want to be on your page, and you're showing them and displaying them in a way where they feel good or they feel proud, because you're extending that experience from your chair. So just diversifying your timeline up. Maybe it's every third photo you'll have a style. And then that way you're not just limited to, that's all I've been putting up. So now that's all, even though I've got some more stuff I want to talk about, I'm kind of locked in now because that's what people know me for. And we have these imaginary limitations that we put in our head about the stories that we tell. We kind of get locked in. You want to leave enough room for you to expand. If you want to talk about the styles today, and then the next day you want to talk about what products you're using, or the next day you want to talk about a new class that you're going to go to as a new caveat or new upgrade of service that you're going to be able to offer in the future, do that. Or if you're going to talk about just the clients, how great your clients are. I don't hear anybody talking about how great clients are. I just hear them say that they're faithfully coming every week for such and such years. I had an auntie, she said she's been going to her hairstylist for over 30 years. She said it ain't even her hair no more. It's her hairstylist's hair. So create a way where you're able to humanize your clients, so that you're now allowing them to tell their story. And it's not just a testimonial, but a way to show their personality in a way to say, hey, maybe it's a certain style that they like all the time, and maybe they give an opinion as to why they like it. Maybe that'll be the thing that'll get the next person who looks at your page and say, well, I saw something on your page and then you had a girl talk about why she likes braids and why she wears them a lot. And that kind of is what swayed me. I liked how you do your braids, but what swayed me more was that you had people that could relate to what I'm going through. Because I was struggling. I didn't want to put braids in and have to worry about how long they were and the maintenance. But now you made me feel like that's not such a big thing if I come to you and if I lean on you.
Right.
Give them an access point, but don't alienate them. Because, it's more than just, one set of person or audience that's looking at your thing, because you may, eventually you're going to say, I want to expand. I want to expand in some way, form, or fashion. And you want to have content that they can go back, because I know we've all gone and seen somebody's page. We saw a picture, and then what we do, we go back and look at all the other stuff. It could, hopefully you don't have to go too far back, but we do look back to see what they've done to give us an understanding of who they are. I just say be a little bit more direct about that. share a little bit more about who you are. And it doesn't have to necessarily be personal. It can definitely be still within the parameters of your industry, within your craft. So hopefully that's a little something.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We have approached the 2 o'clock hour. I thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today, talking to us about telling our stories and sharing your presentation so that we can go back and review it and look through it again. So thank you so much. And until next time, we'll keep you in mind and keep your content available for all of our members.
Yeah, and look, everybody who's on here, don't be afraid to say hello. That's my whole campaign. The whole idea is to actually get people to say hello. That was the whole reason why I did it for the last 2 years, and I'm still doing it. It's a little slow now, but I'm still doing it. So, feel free to engage with me on my social media, email, whatever. I'm out here continuing to try and build on content and continuing to push my own limits so that I can grow just like you.
All right, everybody have a great day. Bye.
All right.